Yep.
Starting.
Hey. Hi. Okay, so this is our final project for our CVLs. We're all here together.
Yeah. Okay.
Super.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first question, I guess, what do we think of the CVLs, like collaboratively? Like, what do we think of the project as a whole? Any input?
Let's start with Kara and then go down the line.
Okay. I think maybe if there were more structure to the topics we were supposed to discuss in the CVLs, that like I might have learned more about things that I didn't know. A lot of our questions are really opinion based on like, I don't know, like how we were talking about bands and your favorite albums and things like that. And so maybe I learned more about you guys as people, but as like students and educators and like going down the career path that we are and music and technology, I didn't really grow.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, yeah, if this probably could have been more effective if it was more based on music ed. I mean, I think we had a couple questions that were. I think the first question was too, the question everybody had, but it could be a good learning tool if it, like Kara said, was more structured and if there were more questions and input about music ed and technology and stuff like that.
I think content-wise, we could have done a better job covering topics that were relevant to music education. But in terms of like the actual actions that the project required, I think there was a lot of like valuable information gained. Like I know a lot of people in this class had never uploaded a video to YouTube before this.
That's
or
true. I
had
never
to make
had.
like
Yeah.
the exercise of learning how to make a YouTube channel, how to take a video on your phone or your computer, and then learning how to like finalize that and upload it. The process of getting a video from recorded to the internet was something that I think was valuable for a lot of people. But the content of the videos, at least in our case, wasn't necessarily the best. But I think like the way that we did it, it could still be like a good thing to take to a class, and then like if you're teaching like I couldn't see it being applicable in band, but if you're teaching like a music technology class or like a music history class, like this concept could be really cool to apply, to have like people form groups and then have them do discussion sections and like apply this process to a different class.
I like that.
I agree with Shanks. Like music ed wise, looking at the CVLs, it wasn't so much of like us doing music ed stuff or questions about that, but like I also feel like the videos and stuff like that, no one knew how to upload them, or some people didn't know how to upload them. So like this was a good experience for them, and but also it was, I guess, fun. I mean, the CVLs, I don't think it necessarily had to be about music ed. I think it just had to be about other stuff in general, music related. I mean, a friend of mine who's in a different group, she did a CVL where she did a shortened version of Legally Blonde the musical, which I thought was funny, but
Nice.
yeah, so.
I think instead of doing like personal questions about our views on like music and stuff like that, which is valuable, like I think like to apply to like a student, it just they get tired of those questions really easily. So maybe something more engaging, like if you're like in a band, like if you're a concert band or whatever, like what imagery do you see in this piece, and then you discuss it with your CVL group or something like that. Something that's more applicable to the subject matter. Hey, big words.
I definitely think that I think that
Big words.
the best thing about this is the idea of being able to apply it to classes as a teacher. Like
Yeah.
being able to engage students outside of the classroom in discussions and like engaging topics. Like I don't know, it's a lot easier for me to like throw on a camera and record 2 or 3 minutes of me talking about something than it is to like write a reflection or like type up a summary. Like I think this is an alternative to that, or it could be a really cool alternative to that. And it creates discussion and community amongst the students too, which is cool.
Which honestly, I never thought of it from that perspective until you just said it. Like the fact, applying it to even like music history classes and things like that, I feel like that would be really applicable. I just think for this class specifically, we could have introduced the project and maybe done a couple weeks of it, but I feel like, you know, making 11 CVLs was almost overkill because by the time we got to the end, our questions weren't
It's kind of the same.
Mhm.
Actually, I thought like that it overarched the entire semester, like made it like a lot more interesting, got us into the habit of it, and more experience of like a legitimate CDL that like our students would have seen on YouTube. So I mean, while they need a little bit more guidance, like I mean, it's kind of cheap just to do it for a couple of weeks because so many teachers forget about long-term projects like that, and to actually like follow through would be a pretty cool experience.
If we had a better idea of like what to do for the CVLs, like not just music ed related, besides just asking music related questions, I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more creative.
And with the technology part of it, like you said, some people, I can't remember who said it, but some
You said
people,
that, and then I agreed.
well, some people like didn't, some people didn't know how to upload videos to YouTube.
Yeah.
Like I'm not tech savvy at all. But one thing I was very proud of was able to cut one of my videos from like a minute to 30 seconds. I was very proud of that personally, just because I'm not tech savvy at all. And so, I mean, that's another benefit. It's like you have this video, but you need to shorten it so you can do this. So you
Yeah.
can teach other people how to do that too.
Okay, so next question, right?
Yeah. What can we apply from these projects?
I think just the class in general, right? Like the projects that we've done.
I think the most helpful one for me was learning Audacity.
Same.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, it's honestly it's pretty simple. Like the basics of it are, and you could teach a kid like a middle schooler, high schooler, to use it pretty easily, and then they can mess around with it to make their own recordings, to hear themselves, and it can be pretty helpful from that.
My favorite thing about Audacity is that it's free. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
one of
so
the
true.
it's really easy to get in the hands of students, and it does have a pretty wide variety of options. So students can it's pretty easy to like get the feel of the basics and then play around with it. And then in particular, like I think that like the music identity project is a cool thing that we can like just literally like copy and paste into like
Very true.
It's
anything we
kind
do.
of cheesy though.
I mean, but it's a really cool way to get to know your students and to
Yeah.
let your students like I think I was more interested in hearing other people's music identity projects than I was in my own. Like I just think it's really interesting to learn more about people and why it is they want to do music. And I think that like that's important because like when you're in an ensemble and you know why someone's there, like you know why the person next to you is there, you're more inclined to do the work, and it's a motivator because you're not
Yeah.
doing it just for yourself, you're doing it for all the other people.
Yeah, I really like that project too because the music that I listen to and like concerts that I go to, like concerts, it's definitely a different half of my like musical life
Mhm.
than being in school. And so I was really excited to actually get to like use that and work with that because it's such a big part of like why I love music,
Mhm.
but it's not applicable in my
Yeah,
studies.
I totally agree.
Do you guys have
That was like one of my favorite things about our group is like we kind of focused on like the
Personal
appreciation
aspects.
side
Of
of
our
music.
group, yeah.
And like that's a huge part of why we're all here. Is like it's not just like that we like to play, it's that like at the end of the day, like I love going home and like if I have an hour just going on like Spotify or whatever and just like
Mhm.
listening to new music or like throwing on an album I really like and like I don't know, just hanging out. Like I love when I'm at home, I can just like have friends over and put on a record and we can just sit and talk.
Yeah.
I like that we were touching on that.
Come on, no, for shame. There we go.
I think, going back to Audacity and like the programs that we learned how to use, I think it would be really helpful to have sort of a compilation of like maybe what Chris or Dr. Thibault, however you say it,
Tebow.
Um,
I think it's just short.
like things that certain programs and things that they think are really important, if they could like compile in one place some like tutorials or like handouts or references on how to use these things, because like in a one semester music tech class we can't learn all the things that I would necessarily like want to teach to my students, you know, like
Sibelius.
like Sibelius and like even Audacity. Like I don't know if I would feel comfortable like troubleshooting for my students because I have such like small experience with that. And so having all of that in like one place, like something that they compile so that we can trust it and we know like like that we can what's what I'm thinking of, that their information is going to be valid and helpful, and so like it can kind of set us up so that if we put the work in to like go through those things and kind of learn more, then we'll feel comfortable teaching it. Does that
Or
make sense?
even
Totally
like
agree with
even like a list of resources that you can just give to students who are interested in
Yeah.
those things. Like
That's what I'm saying.
Like I know personally I'm not gonna have time to pursue everything I'm interested in, but if there's a kid who's like, that's kind of like something that I think is important, like to get out of all these like education classes. It's like if
Yeah,
it's
like
something
methods classes.
or like methods classes or like history class or anything like being able to like, even if it's not something I'm personally interested in, being able to have something that if a student comes to me and is like, I'm really interested in this, like take a look at this, like you can like explore this on your own. Like I can't help you anymore, but here's something you can like explore and learn more with and
Yeah.
study independently.
Because after using doing the projects that we did here, I enjoyed them while I did them and I understood it while I did it, but if I go back and try to use the same programs or do the same things, I feel like I definitely won't remember just because like I'm not doing it every day, I'm not experiencing it. And so like having those steps like written down or in a tutorial somewhere like in one place that I can remember to go back to when I'm teaching or to give to students would be really cool.
I feel like this is it's good to know this material and like the stuff that they're teaching us in the class, because like you guys said, you want to be able to teach your students, and like I feel like that's important with any class. You want to be able to utilize whatever they're teaching you and like understand it to the best of your ability, because you're going to be teaching your students. They're going to know as much as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, they'll be able to learn other stuff on their own, but that starts with what you know, and so you want to know as much as possible and take in what they're teaching you so that you can help your students in the future.
Yeah. I know, like one of my biggest pet peeves I remember in high school were like these teachers that like they knew like what was on the lesson plan exactly. They didn't know anything else. Like in math classes, if you asked a question on a concept, they wouldn't be able to answer it because they hadn't anticipated anybody asking it, so they didn't learn it. And it just, it doesn't help you expand your horizons and stuff. It doesn't help you learn, especially, it kind of loses your credibility as a teacher too. It's like, I don't know, like I didn't learn it for this class, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Like,
But at the same
and-
time, you can't pretend to know everything. Like
No.
one of the things I hated was a teacher who would just like, if you asked a question and then they didn't want to say I don't know, they were afraid to say that, so they would just make something up. Like it's really obvious when a teacher is just trying. It will
Yeah.
sound correct.
Yeah, when a teacher just makes something up.
You can
But I don't
Like-
go ahead.
you can tell like what teachers actually want to be there and actually want to teach, opposed to the teachers that don't.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you need to make something up if you don't know. I agree to saying like if you don't know, admit it. But having the references available to find out
Yeah,
if
I think that's the
possible
important
and
thing.
having enough like knowledge to be able to look into it, that's
I think there just needs
Yeah.
to be. It needs
Part.
the answer should never be just I don't know. It should be I don't know,
I'll
but
look this up for
here's
you.
something. Here's something that could help you. Here's
or
something.
let me figure it
Let me
out.
find out.
Figure it
Like,
out.
you
Like,
guys-
this is my best guess, but I can look it up later.
Yeah.
You guys know for like the methods classes, some of the teachers, like for instance, the clarinet methods class, Gary, he has us like set up the binders with the articles in it and stuff like that as a reference for the future.
Yeah.
I mean, like in the methods classes, you're only gonna learn so much. You're not gonna be an expert, but as a band director, you're technically seen as like an expert. So it's
Yeah.
good to have some kind of reference for you to be able to look at. If it's students like, oh, how do I do this? And you're like, I will get back to you, and so that you could just go to your office and like open up your little binder.
Exactly, because
that
in
always turns
4
into
years
I'll
from
get
now,
back
it's-
to you, and then it
Never
never
happened.